I'm just going to say it. And not because Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is just as fine as he wants to be, but because I actually really loved this series, y'all. And the gag is, I really don't think Marvel wanted me to, because the rollout was giving very much, here, damn, Gina, I will marry you. They really just threw it out the window with that weird ass trailer, like limited promo. And I don't understand, because it was really good to me. Once you actually sit with it, Wonder Man is probably the most grounded property that we've seen come out of the MCU. It was intentional and it was smart and it was reflective of things that are really happening with people. It's not over the top. If you were coming into this looking for a standard, typical superhero show, this wasn't it. But it's like Marvel remembered humanity. Get it, don't be timid when you in it, plot it. Love upon it, give along, need it. I don't want no trip, baby, spend like My name is Ashley, and this is My Sweet Perspective, where I give my take on all things TV and movie related, and I am here to put you on, okay, with this one, and I love that for us. And welcome back to the channel. Y'all know what it is. We are back to talk Wonder Man, the 8-episode series that released last week all at once. But I really want to talk about this show because I felt like the themes were important. I felt like the messaging was important. And I'm just excited to see where Simon goes from here. So in this video, we're going to get into the lore versus what the show actually presents. We'll talk about the cast and crew choices. We'll talk about Midnight Cowboy, that reference that was really important in my book. And the big question, where does Simon go in the MCU from here? If he goes anywhere, y'all. I don't know, but we'll see. Marvel's rollout. Why did they market it like they did? Before I get into the story, we have to talk about the rollout because it was, I said, weird as hell. The marketing was muted. The trailer didn't really set any stakes for us. It was all over the place. It felt like a hodgepodge of thrown together footage, and I'm really trying to understand why. You had the material, and I will say this. I believe that the fandom can be very fickle, right? And a lot of times in recent history have not really given opportunities to new characters, especially when there's a quote unquote race swap in place. So I get trepidation, but then why do the project altogether if you're going to present it to us on a trash can lid? You know what I mean? They say in the Cosby Show. Anyway, it's interesting because the creative team has talked openly about how fragile some of these projects can be behind the scenes. This could have been scrapped type of fragile. So I'm saying Marvel is sitting around trying to sabotage their own stuff. Not really. I don't think they would put effort, time, money, the names into it if that's what they were wanting to do. But you were afraid of what the fandom was going to say. And I don't think they had to, because this turned out to be really good, in my opinion. So why the show hooked me immediately, what pulled me right in right away, is that we're following a very talented, very fine chocolate brother in Hollywood, Simon, and his secret powers, right? He's hiding them for 2 reasons. One, we find out about the Dorman clause, which was a whole thing in episode 4. We meet Dorman, the man who's got superpowers that really betray him ultimately. And basically from here on out, this clause is in place with all of the major studios in Hollywood so that people with powers are able to be a part of different projects without a crazy amount of insurance, etc., because it's too dangerous, it's too much liability, it's too unpredictable, and that's part of his reason. Now let's get into the full story recap. So at the start, we see Simon in the industry, working, auditioning, hustling, but also overthinking everything. Even when he gets a small role, he's doing the absolute most. He's that person who turns simple moment into a full existential debate and conversation. You can tell it's costing him opportunities. It cost him American Horror Story, right? His career starts wobbling and his self-sabotage is a part of it. He wants it so bad, but when he's close, he panics, he spirals, right? And so after losing the American Horror Story audition, he goes to the movies again for Midnight Cowboy and he meets Trevor Slattery. Yes, y'all know the Mandarin. Trevor's in the back and they connect, and he lets him know basically that he's going to be auditioning for Wonder Man. Now, Wonder Man, as the series opens up, he's there with his father as a little boy. Simon is watching that movie, and you can tell that it's shaped his life and destiny and what he wants to do. So he's got to be a part of this project. He finagles his way into the audition. They love him, and now Trevor and he are connected at the hip. Trevor's advising him while actually working as a double agent with the DODC to get intel and ultimately, hopefully, get Simon into custody because they say he's dangerous and unmanageable. But he's here. They both get callbacks. Simon's about to mess it up again, but Trevor is there to help him through that. Ultimately, they both get hired onto Wonderman. And shortly after that, Simon's character blows up the studio. He gets some information. It sends him over the edge. And Trevor, because at this point, he has really gained an affinity after meeting the family, meeting the mom, learning more about Simon. He's really got a heart for him, and he takes the blame as the Mandarin and gets sent back to prison. Now, fast forward, Simon has done the role. He's a household name now. He basically infiltrates the prison, busts Trevor out, and now apparently they're going to be on the run together. Again, completely unexpected from Trevor's character, completely unexpected from Simon's character. What I did love is that while he's had this power the majority of his life, this ionic energy power, this is the first time he's learned to manage it, to control it, to actually gain some agency over the power when he busts Trevor out. And I felt like that was the culmination of his work. Absolutely love that. But honestly, for me, Simon's real issue was his fear of greatness. And we saw that in multiple different ways to me in the series, one of which really being the fact that just like Yahya Abdul-Mateen in real life is talented, Simon is very talented and capable actor. Yet in every situation we see him in, from the first audition with American Horror Story to later on trying to vie for the role of Wonderman, he puts too much on it. It very much gives you're trying to sabotage this. And that's not even just about the power. That's about just his regular talent. So I think by compounding that, this thing that he's felt like has made him this outsider in his family, he's afraid. He's not just hiding it because he has to. He's hiding because he's scared of what it means if he stops hiding. He's scared, in my opinion, of being great, of being remarkable, and of being seen in that way. And I felt it was so relatable. So Simon Williams, talent, self-sabotage, and of course, over-analysis. Simon is talented, period. He's not delusional. He's not really just trying hard with no ability. He got it. He got the spark. But he is over-analytical to the point of self-destruction. He wants it so badly. And then when the opportunities show up, he does his best to destroy them. He questions everything. He spirals. He micromanages his own life. He's arguing with himself in a group chat. And I think that's why it feels relatable to a lot of people, because how many of us have talent, the tools, the gifts, all of those things, but we're hiding the thing that makes us special because you could have been told you're too much. This is too much. Nobody wants this from you. But I think when you push through it all, you can see that your talent really makes room for you ultimately. And as a Black viewer, the commentary hits differently too, because there's very real social pressure, sometimes direct, sometimes unspoken, to be palatable, to not be too much, to not stand out too boldly, to hide the thing that makes you unique so you can survive. So Simon hiding his power is literal, but it's also symbolic, in my opinion. The show is doing these two things at once. And like I said, I feel like the show has just been so intentional about what he's going through. You know what I mean? So with all that being said, let's not take away from the fact that in real life, in this show, Simon is not likable. At least to me, his character is not very likable, right? And we see him in different situations as far as with his ex-girlfriend, with his family. We see him in these spaces. We hear the stories when his mom has the party and he's got to interact with these people from his past, from the family or people that he grew up with. It gave very much known he was alone. He's a loner. So he's very self-contained. He's very much in his own bubble and not interested much in anyone else but himself. He's self-obsessed, definitely. The world revolves around him, his emotions, his goals, his frustration, his wounds. Everything is very much me, me, me. And the show really doesn't hide that at all. I feel like it leans into it. And again, I think that's what he's going to make him relatable to a lot of people, because I think sometimes, especially in the world of the MCU, in other franchises, we expect our protagonists to be likable, to be funny, to be outgoing, to be compassionate, to be all of those things. And honestly, throughout this whole thing, I'm wondering, is this going to be Simon's villain origin story, or is he going to turn out to be a good guy? But we'll get into that a little bit later. If anything, it leans into it because it wants you to see how Simon's personality has really shaped his life. His strained relationship with his older brother, who seems to have it all together and he never does. A messy history with his ex, and ex basically saying, "You just never wanted to let me in. I've known who you are this whole time and I've kept your secret. I just wish that you would have opened up to me." No real friendships present day to speak of, no emotional safety net, and a worldview that basically says I'm alone and I have to control everything in my orbit so that I'm safe, so that I'm protected. So the entire time, again, I'm watching, like, it's going to take one thing to make him go to the dark side, because Simon honestly can go either way. And that unpredictability is one of the best things about the show, in my opinion. Now, enter Trevor, aka the Mandarin, honey, who has been released out of jail from the DODC, the Department of Damage Control, created by Tony Stark, to basically say, follow this man around. His powers are unhinged, they're unmanaged. We need him in our custody, but we need somebody to get close to him to get the tea on really who he is and what his powers are. And basically, Trevor's like, hell, because I've been locked up this entire time. This is my way out. This is my free ticket. And I'm going to do what needs to be done. Now, we know that he was paid to be the Mandarin, to play that part, and that really wasn't who he was. Nevertheless, he has to do the time. So he's basically there to get intel and deliver Simon up to the DODC. And at first, Trevor's spying because he wants out, right? He wants the freedom. He wants autonomy. He wants to really be unshackled from this and maybe even pursue his own acting career, right? He wants it. He's really there for survival and not friendship. And that's what made it so tense, because the whole time I'm wondering, is Simon going to find out? Because this is just the betrayal that we need to create a true villain, right? Him finding out, I've been using you, I've been pretending to be your friend, to be this mentor, to be this person that's going to give you sage advice, and you've been playing with me the whole time. And is this betrayal, again, going to be the thing that pushes Simon over into the villain era? That's what I was thinking about the whole time. Next, we have the Midnight Cowboy blueprint. Now, if you were watching very closely, and it was very early in the season, we see Simon go to the movies to unwind. It was after American Horror Story and they kicked him out because he was doing way too much. And he's there and we see Trevor in the back and he's on the phone being loud in the theater. So what do? Hey, can you shh? He's saying, I don't talk during the movie once the movie starts. And immediately they're gone to see Midnight Cowboy. This is the one with Angelina Jolie, daddy. And he's a hooker. He's a man of ill repute, honey. He's selling that Bucci cat on the streets. And he connects with a friend, Ratso, who later becomes Rico. And it's really this unexpected friendship dynamic that leads them ultimately to tragedy, which, again, is this going to be foreshadowing for what we can expect with these two? Because Midnight Cowboy is not an easy watch. I'm saying it's triggering. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But there's some heavy themes over there, right? They're hustling and surviving, and an unlikely pair get together to follow the dream ultimately. And like I said, it results in tragedy over there. But here, again, an unlikely pair, friendship, but meaning and having a similar goal to make it in Hollywood. At least that's what Simon believes. So definitely I can see the mirror in this. Again, every piece of this to me was so intentional and so smart, and I loved that. Simon, of course, is performing confidence, performing ambition, performing I'm fine. Trevor is performing loyalty while he's spying, performing friendship while ultimately he's trying to save himself. And what's so good about it is, even though the relationship starts in a lie, it really does become the most real connection Simon has, I'll say, outside of his mother. So when the friendship gets tested, it's emotional foundation to me for the whole series. Also, side note, Sorben Kingsley and Yahya have an amazing chemistry on screen to me. I thought the casting was impeccable. And so, speaking of the friendship, the casting, and the betrayal question, narratively, we're watching Simon's big opportunity take shape. He's trying to land and hold onto the role, trying to navigate Hollywood, trying to keep his secret, and trying not to let it out. And he has multiple slips through the season, right, where his emotions get out of control for him. And what I thought was really interesting is that in all of these years, and we can probably say Simon is in his 30s, right? he hasn't really gained agency over his powers until the very end. And we see what happens over there. But it's like you really had this power, you kept it dormant, you didn't do anything with it ultimately until you achieved a level of success. And I think that's commentary on another thing that we can talk about at another time. But we're watching him, and Trevor's right there, close enough to gather intel, close enough to influence, close enough to hurt him ultimately. Then once they get cast in the Wonder Man movie, that's when things shifts, because this is supposed to be the dream moment, the thing Simon has been chasing. But the irony is, the closer he gets to success, the more his fears show up. And Trevor, who started out spying, is slowly beginning to care. And I think that honestly happens when he goes to the family affair and meets Mom. And Mom shares this story about how Simon had gotten hurt, and he was like, "Mommy, thank you for loving me." And she said, "I thought his Criterion collection was enough. I thought he was self-contained, but in that moment, I understood that he needed people, he needed community." And that's where we go from there. The part that ultimately sealed it for me when Trevor makes that act of altruism shortly before they're cast, because at that point, it's not just, I'm doing this to save myself. It's actually, I care about what happens to you. I care about who you are. And ultimately, I want to see you win. And that's when I started thinking, if Trevor eventually betrays him, it's going to hurt in a whole different level, a whole different way. So now let's get into the lore versus the show, who Wonder Man was in the comics. So quick comic context. In the comics, Wonder Man has always been complicated. I believe he makes his debut in issue 9. Yes, the comics Wonder Man first shows up in the Avengers number 9, I believe in 1963 or 1964. And he starts out as a guy whose life has fallen apart. He gets pulled into a scheme and is turned into a weapon through ionic treatments. He joins the Avengers as a double agent, and it's this whole thing, right? So villain to superhero, and there's all of this stuff, right? I'm desperate, I'm angry, I'm being used, and I might betray the Avengers, but also I might not. So the thought that he could go bad is present in the comics, but that's really it to me that translates into the show. The show does something smart, though. It doesn't make him this ultimate supervillain or a really likable superhero. It makes him a man afraid of himself. Also, in the comics, Wonder Man has a deep tie to Vision. Ultron uses Simon's brain powers in Vision's creation, and they have this complicated bond over the years. The show does not bring up Wanda, doesn't bring Vision, which was cool. And I think it places him in an interesting place in the MCU and gives him some flexibility in terms of what they can do going forward. So I'm here to see what they're going to do with him in that. Now let's talk about the cast and crew. Simon is played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. And what I appreciate is it doesn't try to make Simon cute and lovable. He lets Simon be talented, insecure, self-absorbed, kind of anxious, frustrating, and still very human. Destin Daniel Cretton being involved makes sense because the show is patient and it's intentional. And of course, our showrunner, Andrew Guest, is our showrunner, and he's done a lot of comedy writing in the past, and it absolutely makes sense. I think that these were both fans of the MCU, and I just really feel like everything was great. And like I said, Sir Ben Kingsley plays Trevor. It was just great casting over here, in my opinion. So what is Marvel actually planning for Simon next? At this point, there hasn't been a ton of statements released after the premiere of the show as far as where he's going or what their intentions are with the character of Wonder Man. This is the Marvel Spotlight approach, meaning it's been designed to stand alone but still live inside the MCU. Again, because you didn't really need to know much about it. You could have watched Iron Man's and learned about the Mandarin, but again, you really didn't need that to go into this property at all. As of right now, again, there's no official publicly confirmed next project where Marvel has announced Simon Williams will appear next. But I think it leaves doors open. Like I said, in the comics, he's got a relationship with Vision. His brother is the Grim Reaper in the comics. And so there's a way that they can go there in terms of direction. I think with a lot of things coming up, a lot of new projects, I believe in phase 6 of the MCU, I think there's room for him to go. And I'm excited about it. I think the coolest thing we could probably do is bring him on in some sort of X-Men mutant capacity. I think that would be really cool to see. But again, as of right now, we don't know where it's going. I just like the hope and the possibility that we could get something like that going forward. To me, it wasn't a slow burn. Some people will say it took them a while to get into it. I was sat from episode 1, absolutely loved it. And I think this was great. Again, this is one of the best properties that I've seen from Marvel on Disney Plus in terms of a series since WandaVision Low-Key season 1. From those two properties, this has been the best thing since that time. So now overall, the show didn't feel like Marvel trying to impress me. It felt like Marvel like saying, "I can handle this. It'll be all right." Trusting the audience to sit with the discomfort, with insecurity, with ambiguity, letting a black male lead be flawed, self-obsessed, scared, and human without turning it into a stereotype. And the Dorman clause, yes, please. Episode 4, like I said, did their big one. I thought that was a great episode. Everyone's comparing it to the black and white Atlanta episode. I don't quite compare it to that. I will say it was a shift. It was a tonal shift in the story, but I enjoyed it. I thought it mattered. I thought it was important to the story, and it gave us a break, right? Throughout the 8-episode series. I thought it was clever because it gives Simon a concrete, I have to hide this reason, while the show is quietly telling you that there's something deeper. He's not just hiding from his power, he's hiding from himself. And that's why I'm excited for whatever they do next, because Simon could genuinely go either way. And that's rare over here in the MCU. Did Simon grow on you by the end, or did you like him all the way through? Again, I could be in the world all by my own, lonesome, not really caring for his character immediately. I still say he need to go lay on that lady couch. At some point, he needs to go on and lay on that lady's couch. Again, I loved seeing him as Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen, and I love seeing him over here as Wonder Man. And honestly, I just want to see more of Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. And that's it, y'all. If you guys are still here, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to comment, subscribe, do all of the things, and I will see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching.